I'm Monica Johnson with Marshall Weber, and this is Booklyn Calling. Hello, hello. Welcome to our show, Booklyn Calling. This is where we talk about artists, libraries, social justice, and education. I'm Monica, and I'm here with Marshall, and we are part of Booklyn Inc., an arts nonprofit located in Brooklyn, New York, on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape people. And you know this, but we created Booklyn Calling to amplify voices in the artist book field and to explore art making as a tool for community engagement and for social change. And because I did a really long preamble last episode, I'm going to cut to the chase and say today we're talking to the co-directors of Letra Muerta, Faride Mereb, and Oriana Nuzzi. And if you haven't heard of them, here's what we can tell you before we bring them on so you can hear from them directly. So Letra Muerta is a award-winning design studio, workshop, and Latin American archive centered in New York City. Founded in Venezuela in 2014 as an independent publishing house, the organization began by bringing attention to important unpublished and out-of-print texts with a strong commitment to thoughtful design, typography, and a respect for authors. Over the years, Letra Muerta has evolved into a hybrid creative space dedicated to artistic experimentation, historical preservation, and community memory. While its programs are open to all, the studio is especially committed to supporting Latin American and Caribbean artists, particularly women and others whose voices have been historically marginalized. And before they come on, I just want to say I love these people so much. I am so I feel generally a little bubbly to be able to talk to them today and to have them on the podcast. They're people I love being in the same room with. Every time I bump into them in the world, I am just the energy. I want you guys to feel the energy of these people. So Faride and Oriana, can you please come on and say hello?
Hi, hola. Hello.
We always kind of tend to start with how did we meet? What is the origin story of Booklyn registering Letra Muerta and vice versa? So maybe I'll put that to you guys. When do you remember the first time you heard about Booklyn, or maybe when you met either myself or Marshall? Or
Yes,
yeah,
I
tell
do.
me.
so, so I would say it's two parallel stories. The first story would be that it was definitely something that was eventually going to happen through Interference Archive because
Mm.
we're very committed to archival research, as you know, and there's a very hefty archive of social movements in Latin America and Interference. So that's a place we frequented.
Hmm.
The other, I would say it was, oh, in several lectures that we were giving at universities or classes, constantly people would say, "Have you heard about Booklyn?" at the end.
Oh wow.
And I was like, why? What's Booklyn? What happened? And then it started to become sort of a constant. And yeah, it was meant to happen.
That feels flattering too. I don't know, Marshall, does that resonate? Because I'm oh, people know about us. People mention us. That's so cool.
Well, yeah, I just remember how excited Monica was. One day she was like, "You have got to go see these Letra Muerta people." And I was like, Okay." And she said, "No, seriously, you got to call them up and make an appointment to go see them as soon as possible." And I was like, wow, Monica does not usually say stuff like that. I mean, we are all super busy. Um, and just long story short, I think what's very resonant, it's we work with a lot of great artists, we work with a lot of great activists, but it's rare that we work with other organizations that are collectives, that are cooperatives, that are structured as an organization. And I feel there's just so many similarities to the mission that Letra Muerta has and the mission that Booklyn has. So in kind of just over a year, we've done some really major projects. Notably the Letra Muerta box set, which was just a fabulous project. And a lot of times it takes years for those relationships to build. And this was just like boom, 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 boom. In between a lot of great meals, because there's always. I think you have a clue that there is always time for coffee and there is always time for lunch.
A girl's gotta eat.
I agree with you, Marshall. Maybe the way that we think about the materials or the relationship that we do, it's very similar to what you and Booklyn do. And it was so nice to everything turned out really well. And well, it's turning. But I think there is like a similar way of being like seeing things, and that's been great.
Mm-hmm. I have it in my head sometimes that like I love meeting people and other organizations that are out to do similar things. I just think of us as living in the same ecosystem, like of shared resources. So like, you know, and the fact that we're all very pressed to the ends of our capacities for sure means that it's good to know what other people are doing better than you so that you don't have to do them yourself. So that if somebody comes to you and says like, "Hey, I'm looking for some archives from Latin America," I know that I can say you should talk to Letra Muerta. That's not something that we need to specifically take on as something to serve clients that we have, but I like the interconnectedness of the ways that we can work together. So it's more of like a shared access, sharing resources, identifying what, individually or as organizations, what we bring into this world and how we work together towards common goals, but bringing different things to the table just to keep the food narrative going.
I think that Booklyn has been a huge influence on us in many levels. And one of the main aspects of that is the social commitment that we have towards I don't know if I would call it trade, but towards the field. And in our case, it's something that's relatively foreign in many cases because the kind of conversations we frequent are regarding design, and not everybody in the design world tends to discuss the sort of subjects that us, like you and I, have in common as organizations. Let's say social movements or design outside of practices that have to do with serving capitalist ideas. So in that sense, I think it has been really refreshing and also influential to see how far you've come and all the things you do. We definitely aim to accomplish being out there for so long. Mm-hmm. You've been around for over 20 years, correct?
27.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've been a project for 12 years, but functioning as a physical studio with collection development and archives and research center for 4. It's going to be 4 in November. So yeah, huge example.
Yeah, maybe could we take a minute? Could you kind of walk us through the origin story of Letra Muerta? Maybe even like throw in like what the name means to you and why that name is how you identify.
Yes.
And then like how it started in Venezuela, it came to New York City, and then you've added things along the way. I'm really curious what that storyline is like.
Yes. So Letra Muerta started in 2014 as an excuse to publish a research that I had been doing for 8 years. And publishing the research under my name seemed kind of stupid. And I also, at the end of the day, when you work in a book, you collaborate with so many people that a book is not just this thing made by one person. So it just made sense to name it something that could encompass everything and everyone who was getting involved in the project somehow. So letra muerta is a legal term. It means, it's a term that's used when something loses validity, like a contract is no longer in place, or something's no longer useful, or something's like in a drawer and no longer in circulation. But also the name itself, the origin, letra, means letter. So since we have such a huge focus on typography, it just made sense. And muerta is dead. Since we work with archives and a lot of authors that are no longer around, it just made extra sense, from the legal term and also from the direct words that are involved. So 2014, we published, I would say until 2018, books in Venezuela. And we also did some services within the editorial field. What I started on myself ended up being a team of 5 people. In 2018, I migrated to the US, and I was brought here by a company. So I worked, corporate, quote unquote, until I was able to kind of like start Letra Muerta again. And I met Oriana around 2021, I would say. We started working together informally, like per project here and there. And when I met her, I felt how I hadn't felt since Venezuela, which was, I can trust this person to, build something with and carry on this project. And I asked her if she wanted to marry me.
What did she say?
I asked her, do you want to start Letra Muerta here in the US with me? And she was like, whoa, wait a second. You're going too fast.
No, I didn't say that you were going too fast. I was like, wait, what? 100% yes. How we're gonna do it, I don't know, but yes, let's do it.
That's awesome.
I don't know how, but yes.
So we opened up in a basement unit between South 2nd and 3rd at Hooper. We used to share the space with someone else. We functioned there for 2 years, and we honestly, if we could, we would still be there. We loved that space, but we outgrew it in many ways. We outgrew it because we were getting delicate archival material, and humidity is a thing. So the dehumidifiers were not enough for our needs. We also started working with many artists. The more books we made or acquired, people wanted to visit and read, and we didn't have the infrastructure for that. So we aimed in those 2 years to work our asses off so we could have more of like a cushion, or like more tools and resources in our hands to open a space where we could host our community, people, students, and host the archives as well. And that's where we're at. We've been here for 2 years, and we recently decided we're signing for 3 more years. So yeah, come visit us. This also brings me to something else I wanted to make sure I mentioned today. My experience so far in the US has been that the cultural exchange is very, very like the same as the economic system is completely different than that of Venezuela. The culture is also completely different. And I think the economic system in this country also makes people highly individualistic. So my experience so far had been borderline uncomfortable or alienating to an extent, because you're here in a new country asking people for advice, for help, looking for references, and everybody seems to be like super mysterious about stuff. Like, I don't know, you should ask your accountant. Why don't you ask someone else? So when we met Josh, and when we first met Josh, we asked so many weird questions, and he answered so patiently all of them. Then he said we should talk to Booklyn, and then we talked to you, and you were so open and so willing to share, which is something extremely rare these days. I think there's a lot of like a mentality of competition, and we don't see that with Booklyn, which is one of the things we love. We think of like within the same community, and we should support each other. And we found with Marshall, with you, just so much knowledge and resources, and I think you have helped us grow so much, and we're so thankful for that.
Oh, that's so great. I appreciate that so much. But yeah, I love that you're saying that, because I feel similarly about both of you. Like, our connection, it feels like it's about world building, or like, if you want things to change, then keeping your secrets is not the way to do that. Having exclusive access to things is a loss. That's not the idea. So if you want to extend that to, you mentioned Josh McPhee and Interference Archive, like, use is preservation is their motto for archives, not something where you keep them behind locked doors. Booklyn has this, like, the more we did this podcast because we want more people to know how what we've figured out works, in hopes that more people will do it, not to be in competition with us, but to like collaborate and grow. And I love that we know you, because that's what possibility we've created for ourselves by being open with each other and sharing information and supporting each other.
Yeah, I feel that. And I also want to provide a historical context for this North and South America communications and culture, because Booklyn grew as an organization, mostly founded by white identified North Americans, but with a big history of being affected by Pan American culture, whether it was OSPAL and Cuba, or both me and Monica lived in the Bay Area, where the Chicano community was very radical and had a very specific take on culture, especially the arts, that was much more radical and populist in general than the conventional American publishing and art world. And then we just kept on being open to those communications, to seeing the organization as Pan-American, not just American or United States. And we're very lucky to work with people like Just Seeds, that had a lot of Mexican artists, and we got to work with the School of Popular Culture of the Martyrs of 1968, and that spurred our whole box set project. And then Maria Veronica San Martin we came, from Chile, very radical artist and pedagogue, came onto our board. And we kind of intentionally are trying to operate from this Pan-American perspective, because it is challenging as an American, as an United States of American, to get over that competitive, individualistic, Protestant kind of art world with a capital A orientation towards culture and publishing. And I think that trajectory continues with the work that we're doing with Letra Muerta. I mean, we're learning so much from Oriana and Faride. It's like really a long conversation that's been really informative.
There are three things that seem important within your practice. Collaboration, poetry, and experimentation. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how that is an important part of how you work. And especially, I say poetry. Poetry is a little bit a different identifier than like collaboration and experimentation. It's like an art form as opposed to like an approach to work. But that poetry always feels like there are people who need to defend it, and that there are more people saying they don't like it or don't understand it or don't do it. It's like a minority kind of mode of expression. So I'm wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit on how those things show up in your work and why they're important to you.
Yeah, collaborative work, it's one of our main I don't know if it's like call it like source of way of doing things. As Faride mentioned earlier about, I think this is very important because we come from publishing, like our publishing practices, and that's something that is very collaborative. Like you cannot make a book just, I mean, you could try to, but still, making a book involve many people, like a poetry, a literature book, and that's how Letra Muerta started. Uh, so we take that into a wider range of doing things. Uh, so like every time that we approach even a design project, archives, and even an event, we try to involve or other people, and sometimes when you do that, you get to see different experiences. I wanna uh, point out also, or like taking what Marshall was saying of like this vision that involves just not, in your case, American vision, but also like like I don't like the word global, but like multicultural vision. um, and in that sense, we do it from the people that we share the space with. Like, that we share the space with like an American Palestinian artist and then a Puerto Rican professional. And like we do it from there to the people that we bring in to talk, discuss, participate. Uh, Sometimes they change the way we see things, and that's important. And that's important to like keep the conversation going, and changing and getting it richer, etc.
No, I just think that that's sometimes not even like an influence. That's how it starts. Sometimes you're just doing your thing and someone comes to you with an idea or wants to establish dialogue regarding a subject you're working with or has something to contribute to something that you're doing. And that's where new possibilities start opening up. Not necessarily something you're doing requires you to call someone else for a different perspective, but it kind of happens on its own. It's the natural course of things. We have so many things in common as people, and just having different perspectives on things coincide sometimes, makes things more interesting. In our case, we work a lot with artists, with other designers. We work a lot with translation, which is one of the main things we focus on, translation, because we know there's so many different books who are not available either in Spanish or vice versa in English, which limits a lot the scholarship that's being produced both here in the U.S. and in our case, more specifically in Venezuela. So we're sort of building those bridges in that sense. In the case of poetry, I would say is something more linked with its abstract nature. Oriana is a poet herself. I'm not a poet, but I've appreciated and enjoyed poetry all my life. And I think there's a threshold within poetry as a genre that allows you to have broader room for interpretation than with other genres. And when I say this, is mostly based on the literary images and how people can interpret them from each of their own context or experience. And we can see that a lot with how expressive and guttural, I don't know if that's a word in English, guttural,
Yep.
like from your gut, um, Latin American poetry can be, especially how many good poets we have in Venezuela. I think everything we've been through makes us, somehow good at what we do. I would like to think. Um, and that in poetry. In the case of experimentation, I would say something more linked with seeing ourselves always somehow as a student. I think the curiosity and the inquiry that comes from when you're learning something leaves a lot of room for uncertainty and vulnerability. And those spaces tend to be avoided a lot when you are established professional in your field. And that comes from either what you were taught in I don't know, in college or by peers or whatever. but we have kind of like a conscious rule within our space that if something's starting to look too similar or too stiff or too repetitive, we try to kind of break that mold and leave room for experimentation. Obviously, this is very dangerous because since we function as a design studio, as a business, this means that our processes tend to maybe, become a little bit longer or a little bit more complex. So that's why we are very careful with the projects we take on, not only with their involvement within how we see the world, how our, if they encompass with our morals or our goals towards our community, because we don't just take like any project to make money. We take projects that are involved socially regarding literacy or, art or culture or documenting histories. That's kind of the main the main subjects that we work with, but also being conscious about the use of time and how we spend our time in the studio, making a studio a safe space, having enough room for trying different things, different techniques, being in touch with people in other countries to see what's happening back home, what are the materials that are being used. So in that sense, we're very much in sync with experimentation. I would say that the second aspect of experimentation comes from materiality and materials. We tend to prioritize articulated and quote unquote communication or written communication over visual or material. And a lot of our ideas, uh, surprisingly, can come to us not from learned language, but also our senses, what's around us, what materials we use. So materials are really, really important to us, not only because of the sensory aspect of them, but also how they function as a, I would say, contextual witness until an extent. Uh, because in the materials you use, you can also see the limitations of what's happening in the economy, of the political context, of many things. We have this book, for example, called Al Filo. That book was part of our box set, by the way. And that book we printed in this really, really nice paper. It was kind of this paper that was used for Bibles. We hand bound that book. It was French fold. It had all these amazing characteristics that made it a very delicate book, very archive friendly too. Everything was acid free, etc. We even were in the printing press while it was getting done. And then at the end, when we were reaching the part for the covers, there was a huge importing problem because of US relationships, of course. And we couldn't get access to cardboard. So we couldn't import the materials we actually needed to finish the book. And the book kind of got like stuck in the process, trying to figure out what we were going to do. At the end of the day, we were like, fuck it. Let's do what we can. We got a big donation of pizza boxes from this company. And all the covers of this book that had all these fancy Bible paper inside, the covers are made out of box cardboard that it's highly acidic and, not meant for bookmaking. So in that sense, you can see I know like what was happening in the country through the book and in the materials.
Yeah, and that happened like that. We let that slid in many of the processes. For example, with the catalog that we did for the box set, or like that we started thinking about it with the box set. Like that's something that was fully produced here in the studio, and we love how it came out. But at the end, we worked with some constraints that, and those were that we couldn't, spend so much time like doing, I don't know, like letterpress and then maybe offset, or maybe, like we're like, okay, how we can do the best at, like how can we do a very beautiful catalog that it's like, that talks about the work of Letra Muerta in the past 10 years, but that it can also be easy to produce. And that's how we came out with that.
But that's a lie. That was so hard to produce, Oriana.
No, I mean,
Oh my God, you almost killed me.
it was like I mean, it wasn't that hard. It was, the thing is that just the two of us were working on that.
Well, who else is gonna work on it? It's just the two of us.
Exactly, yeah, but we have worked in other projects with more people, you know.
Yeah,
And
I
in
know. I'm
Podcast,
just
we have like
joking.
a binder, and you know, we work with
Yeah.
this artist that binds with us, and you know, all that. In this case, we're like, no, we have to push this, and we have to like, we have to design a binding that we can do like fully in house, but it also looks this way, and it, you know, it give more to the publication.
What was funny
Get out.
about that particular example, I would say, is that Marshall asked us to, oh, can you give us this, this material that we can
Very
include in the
easy to
box?
make something very
Something simple, just to contextualize. And then we went knee deep in this like excursion
Yeah,
of like,
because I was like, we cannot, you know, do a whatever for the beautiful books that Letra Muerta have been producing in the past 10 years. We have to do something worth it. And then when you put Oriana with these ideas and Faride in the other hand, like that's what it comes out. We're like, no, we have to do it well, and we have to write these ourselves, and you know, we're the same at the end of the day. That's why we work so well together.
what was funny is that Marshall was like, "Well, just compile the information that you have written so far on each book, and so we can have really accurate descriptions that can help people understand the project." No, we went and checked statistics. We checked all our bibliographical reference for the field in the US, contrast them to Venezuela, took new photos, mixed new inks. And then meanwhile, all of this was happening and Marshall had no idea. And then
and he's like, why do you look so exhausted?
No, and then like 10 days later, he's like, hey, gentle reminder, I wanted to know where we're at with this material. And I was like, hey, you told me that it was due this time, and we've been working every day until 8 p.m. in the studio after work on this, and it's looking this way. And I sent a photo of the process, with the papers and everything. And then Marshall goes, well, you don't do anything halfway, do you?
As I'm listening to you, you're talking about like, you're pulling together this collaboration, experimentalism. And I'm remembering at the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about like how this country or your experience of like the art play, whatever this, experience is, that people are a little bit guarded or like a little bit, I don't know, capitalistic or something, like kind of efficient and guarded in a way and less social. And I'm also thinking about, Marshall mentioned San Francisco, where he and I both had lived for a significant amount of time, and that was just such a strong force of being like experimentation, was really like how art and culture was produced, and it's so inefficient. And I'm certainly not here to talk about that as much as I am to identify that how much experimentalism as a value in your practice disrupts getting stuck in a kind of capitalist worry that like, how are people going to be able to recognize Letra Muerta's work? Oh, they can't, because every project is its own child. It's its own universe. So I feel like this probably speaks to like how much growth, like personal or professional or artistic or cultural growth, is important to your practice, because that's what happens when you free yourself up to experiment. You're probably a very flexible, and agile. You can kind of, flip in different directions and kind of tend to your different project universes. You're also probably very tired sometimes. It takes energy.
We're immigrant Latina women in the US. What do you think?
What, you just get tired?
Yeah. We're always tired.
Okay, but how do you, I want to know, like, okay, how do you recharge then? Because when I see you, you seem fully charged.
No,
it's the coffee. It's the coffee. Coffee and medication.
No. Like, now talking seriously, I think it's good that we have each other. Like, because, and we have a similar vision about what we do. But sometimes when like Faride is tired or I am tired, like, and we're like, oh no, leave that, leave it as it is, and the other is like, no, let's just try to do this, and we have like we interchange the the the, the not only the task, but like when is a good time for the other person to rest or just go outside and take some sun. It's we help each other a lot in that way, so like tiredness doesn't consume us both.
And I think we've also managed to get a pretty good antenna for when we feel we're getting burned out. uh we have like this look that we give each other, like, do you think we should take a couple of days off? And because sometimes, it's 60-hour weeks or more. Sometimes we work the 7 days of the week. Sometimes we have events on the weekend. Sometimes we have to stay late if a curator is visiting, or if we're producing something in house, or if we're collaborating with someone in a different time zone. But at the same time, we also have to take a step back and, you know, uh, have a wider, I don't know how to say, una visión holística, like a more holistic, no, that's not the same in English, like a panoramic view of the situation, like take a step back and look at the broader view. And then we're like, okay, this is coming. We should take, this day off, or let's cut this Friday and move that meeting to Monday so we can rest one extra day or something.
Yeah. I think I have two other comments regarding this. First, in terms of the projects that we do, I have an example. Like we were like creating this book that we're about to launch, and we were talking about the cover. The cover changed because like the like prices have been increasing, and we're like, we cannot spend like doing a silk screen. Maybe we'll have to do something in house, and we were like, seeing what that's gonna be, and then a finalized book came into our hands, like almost finalized, and I was like, no, I don't like the cover enough, and I think there is something that we should do, but we would have to spend a little bit more on this. And then I was like, well, but let's just like try this. And Farida was like, okay, I'll let you try out something else before just leaving as it is. And the results were really good. And we were like, Farida was like, oh, that's good that I let you go with it.
Yeah, but it was funny because Oriana always comes up with these crazy ideas that remind myself of when I was younger. And I go, Oriana, that's going to go over budget. The book's going to cost like $10 more for each copy. And she's like, but it's beautiful. And I'm like, no, Oriana, it's $10. We can't do that.
When I crazy, she like pulls me back, and I'm like, okay, you're right. Like with me and with her, sometimes she's like, oh no, but I think you should, and I'm like, Farida, but that's gonna cost more, and this, and then she's like, okay, you don't let me dream, and I'm like, yeah, but like I know I'll let you dream with another thing.
I have to say, I need to give a quick shout out to Jan Descartes, who you guys, I think you've met Jan. She's also a curator.
Love Jan.
Jan is wonderful. Because I feel like, and I will say, Jan, thank you, because Jan can be that person with me too, and it's great to have a partner to kind of role play a conversation that might only otherwise exist in your head, that can spin you around. So if you trust each other and you can sort of role play different angles of why or why not to pursue something, but with full like respect for your partner's capabilities and intelligence, you can kind of tug at something and arrive at a decision that, it surprises you. You never know where you're going to go, but that's the kind of like that deep interpersonal trust and willingness to like role play through something that I really appreciate that. And also thanks, Jan.
I think that this year has been so hard regarding what's happening back in our countries, what's happening here to our community, how the decisions of what's currently happening, I'm not going to go into specifics, has affected us directly in how we do our jobs, how we perceive what we do, who we work with, how we even, it's been very complex. Oh, in the US, people say it's been challenging. That's what North Americans say,
Oh, we do
challenging.
say that. Yeah.
But I think that now more than ever in these last, I would say, 6 months, we've lived so many horrible and complex situations that I can for sure say that after this, I don't think anything can separate me and Oriana. Because we've been through shit for sure.
Yeah,
So
it's been a lot, and we're trying to do our best and try to change some things that we do to survive everything that is happening right now. Is very tough for everybody. I mean, especially for for our communities and some other communities that we support. But I mean, if the crisis couldn't kill us back in the moment, like it's not gonna kill us now.
Everything leads into this same topic for me. And there was something Oriana said earlier about taking care of the personal relationships within the art and publishing world. How Letra Muerta, how Oriana Faride are careful of the personal relationships. And it just made me think that everything we're talking about really is vested in solidarity. And the catalog for me was really instructive, the catalog for the box set, which we've talked about, because their catalog was like the way to honor the artists and poets whose work they had rescued from silence in a way. Like this is what you call archival silence and archival rescue. Like these are people that they had honored by bringing their work back, literally. Some of the works were unpublished, some of the works had never been published in the United States. And it was, honorable. But it was also honorable to the librarians and the teachers and the students. So there's something about Letra Muerte that for me represents the future. So I love the word experimentation, but I think more of the word development. And what we haven't talked a lot about here as we speak in English and English and English is many of their publications are in Spanish, which is the ascendant language. And that to me was really important because presenting their work in the United States to American libraries and American universities, we're showing the future of this hybrid digital analog culture, but we're also showing the future of Pan American culture in general. The way that Oriana and Faride frame the work they do, I think is just as important as the work because it really it puts solidarity as the organizing principle, which I think emphasizes the aesthetics and the social value of the work. I remember when I went to their studio to look, we were going to design which books went into the box set, and they kept showing me stuff, and I was going like, "Oh yeah, that should definitely be in the box set." And, oh, that should be in the box set too. And then they're like, "Oh, here's," we had at one point it's like 30 books in the box set, and I'm like, I can't carry that, no one could. So we had to like go down and make some exceptions, and then something went out of print, and then somebody bought in a whole edition, but I mean, if in the best world, if I had my way, that box set would have had like 50 publications in it. It would have been a library instead of just a box set.
it was crazy. When I arrived to the US and I started showing my books to people, I remember even going to curators or bookstores. I remember several people saying, "Oh, that's in Spanish. Nobody's going to read that." Or, "Don't give me copies of your book. That won't sell." And I felt so heartbroken because it made me feel basically ashamed of who I was. I was like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Then I remember the first person to ever accept one of my books was Steven at Quimby's. It's a bookstore in
Oh yeah,
Metropolitan.
nice.
And he was so excited about the books. He just kept talking and talking about the books. He invited me to do a window display, and I started to feel, well, maybe there's more people like Steven in the world. Maybe there's more Stevens, and, then, and then that's how we got to you as well. There's definitely a huge audience of people that not only Spanish is their first language, but also
Mm-hmm.
people that speak Spanish as a second or a third language or are
Mm-hmm.
learning Spanish. And
Mm-hmm.
these are for sure materials that can help develop curricula in many different ways. And also, a lot of our books are very much involved within translation. We work with a lot of multilingual books, and we've recently started publishing books with different writing systems. So our most recent catalog and artist book was in 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Arabic.
Do you have a vision for where like if you could snap your fingers, or just over time, like what's the vision for Letra Muerta beyond what you're doing on the day to day? Like where do you want to go?
Yeah, for sure. Well, right now our main thing is doing more events for our community. It's been really hard to keep up at doing public programming while we're trying to tackle all these other stuff regarding, the financial side of our
Mhm.
studio. We actually have an event coming up about Latin American typography. Everyone's invited. Come visit us. It's on the 24th. More public events, movie nights and workshops, etc. We also want to expand the collection of Latin American Caribbean materials. So far, we have 21 countries represented, including non-Hispanic speaking countries, meaning, Creole, Portuguese, and English and French, obviously, because of colonization. But we want to have more and more publications because, students, when they come, they see themselves represented and really enjoy consulting these materials. So we want to grow the collection. So yeah, grow the collection, host more events for the community, publish more. We're currently working on trying to publish 2 more books in the remainder of this year. Wish us luck, because in parallel to the books we publish, we also do books for organizations and clients. So sometimes you put aside the books you want to publish yourself to kind of keep up with the times of um, requests. We're trying our best to push forward these projects. Um, Oriana, help me out.
Publishing more is one of the things that we want to, or like that we ambition for the following years. It's hard, but I think it's necessary to keep the discussion rolling. Everything that like Marshall was mentioning, it's very important, and like we want to give space for that, and that means not just like being logged and publishing, but also publishing with collaborators. Um, and we have several projects coming in that sense, but also publishing about the scholarship that we have produced in the studio. And that it's very important for us, it's very important for our community, and it's been in the drawer for a little bit. And students are also very, and some scholars are also very into that. So that's part of what's coming sooner than later.
Yeah, I feel like we can do a little ad here, a little promotion. I'm Because what's incredible about Letra Muerta is the level of aesthetic integrity across all your practice. Like, if you want a good graphic designer, if you want a good book designer, if you want someone, you guys are great at branding, you guys are great at typography, but also on the other side, if you want people who can teach about Latin American poetry, archive rescue, the politics of publishing, the publishing industry in of itself. Look, your spectrum of practice is really wide. But then also across that spectrum, what I really admired about Oriana and Faride is this sense of generosity, like the work you're doing with John Vasquez Mejias is just amazing. Like helping someone in the community because you love the person, you love the work, but just everything is all in. Like you don't ever do anything halfway. And I think that's really commendable.
I also want to just give a quick shout out to Jim McHugh from The Pit, because I think that might be the seed of how we maybe first got connected too. Just to point more back to our community of generosity and interconnectedness, because I think that's where you mentioned Josh McPhee was the one who sort of advocated that we connect with you. And I think he was connected to you through Jim. Is that right?
Yes, now that I remember, our basement unit was a block away from the pit.
That's right.
And we used to
Okay.
collect the donations for Venezuelan asylum seekers at the pit. And he constantly, when we went to like look at scenes or buy books, he was like, "Oh, there's a new book by the same person you bought last time." And it always was Josh. It was always Josh. He was everywhere. Oh my God. And then Jim goes, "You should speak to him. You should definitely speak to him because you've been buying consistently everything he publishes. You have to go to the Interference Archive.
Uh-huh.
You have to make that connection." And then Jim also introduced us to John Vasquez.
Yep. Yeah, that's what made me think of that too, because we think of John Vasquez Mejias as being connected to the pit and of course to you.
And I used to take drumming lessons at the pit as well.
Oh, really?
That's a multi-purpose space. You can put donations, you can play drums, you can, yeah. We used
That's
to do
so great.
Yeah, that's one of the things I miss about the old studio is like being so close to that space, for sure.
Mm-hmm. A little tour of Brooklyn. You can stop at Quimby's, Letra Muerta, the Pit, Booklyn, Interference Archive. There'll be a walking tour that we'll produce soon.
The word is change.
The word is change. Everything. Well, let's see. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna load up our show notes with lots of ways that people can get in touch with you. I think your website is really up to date, so I'll just make a quick plug for that verbally, letramuerta.nyc. You can find out a lot of ways that you can connect with them, opportunities to visit, whether it's a class visit, design hire. They have a great reading room as well. And anything else that we want to scrounge up, we'll add to the show notes so people know how to find you. And I just want to say thank you, Faride and Oriana, so much for being on this episode of Booklyn Calling. Thank you to our audience. If you're an artist or an archivist or a librarian, listener, you at an educational institution, and you're interested in Letra Muerta or working with us, you can email us at hello@booklyn.org or check out our collection at booklyn.org. And I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. This podcast was made possible in part by funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and in partnership with the City Council, and from individual donors to Booklyn Inc. You can support this podcast by making a donation at booklyn.org/donate.